Okay, good afternoon. So I think this is the third component we're going to make in our series to put together a gaming PC. I should have got this sorted before I started the video, but we have actually bought all of the parts here. We have a little gaming PC with all of the parts that you suggested. So you can see the CPU fan spinning around there. And then underneath the CPU fan, that's my big finger getting in the way, is the RAM. It's quite hard to see. I don't know where to point to. I'll try and point with a pen, but I'm doing it upside down. That's the top of the RAM. So the random access memory in this gaming PC has got some RGB lighting, red, green, and blue lighting on top. But normally it looks a little bit like this. So we've got some microprocessors on a printed circuit board and some gold connectors. Now the gold makes your computer worthwhile recycling, even if it's broken. There's a lot of gold in electronic components. It's used for two reasons. Number one, because it doesn't rust, and you don't want rust on electrical connections. You want it to conduct electricity really well. And number two, I can't remember what I was going to say, but there are two reasons. Oh yeah, it conducts electricity really, really well. So that's what we're trying to make. What does RAM do? Well, it's very fast at storing stuff. As well as RAM, you have a solid state drive or a hard disk drive. They store much more and they store permanently, but they're much slower. Everything in RAM is lost when you switch the power off, but it's really, really fast. So what you do, you switch your computer on, it loads stuff from your hard disk drive or your solid state drive, and it stores everything, the operating system, the programs, your data in RAM. And then whilst it's in RAM, you can access it really quickly, but you have to remember to save it from your RAM into your hard disk or your solid state drive before you switch your computer off, otherwise you've lost everything. Right, so let's get started making it. The gaming PC that we've assembled for Game Dev Club has got 32 gigabytes of RAM. Most RAM comes in the same kind of form factor, whether it's 8 gigabytes, 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes. Some of it's DDR, DDR2, DDR4. That just means double data rate, much, much faster. But it's still the same kind of size. So you'll notice this plug-in here. This should tell you the keys. I'm pushing in the mouse wheel. I'm scrolling. It should tell you if I forget to say a keyboard shortcut. Right, so we start with the cube. S to scale. Z to scale down, so it's nice and thin. This is going to be the green printed circuit board. Then I'm going to stretch it in the x-axis, so SX, and move my mouse out. So it's the right sort of size for the RAM chip. Now I think it needs to be a bit thicker. SZ, let's make it a bit deeper. Something like that. Good. Right. I would like this to look green. So I need a material. I'm going to double click to change the name of the material to PCB for printed circuit board. I'm going to change the base color to green and make it darker, but it hasn't changed the color on my viewport display because we're still in solid viewport mode. Need to change it to material and then we can see. I think that looks too light for printed circuit boards. Look, it looks a dark green on here. Let's just make it a little bit darker. Lovely. Right, next. The bits that stick up they're not microprocessors, but they are microchips and they're just storage. They store lots of data. So Shift A to add a cube. And then we need to make it the right size. SZ to make it quite thin. GZ to move it up. SX to make it a bit thinner. SY. And they're not cubes, they're cuboids. We don't want any space between the printed circuit boards. GZ, let's move it down, something like that, maybe a bit thinner. Lovely, GZ. Yeah, something like that. Then G for grab, X to move in the X direction. And this particular one has 8 of them. So that's what I'm going to go for. 4 and 4, 2 pairs of 4. So will that fit? Don't know. Probably not. Let's SX, something like that. Good. Now we could duplicate it, but I want to introduce you to modifiers. And these modifiers, you've seen before when we do a subdivision surface modifier, Control 2, Control 3, with the spanner. I'm going to get rid of that modifier. I don't want a subdivision surface modifier. I want an array modifier. So I'm going to press Add, click to add, and search for array. And I've now got 2 RAM chips, or 2 like chips on my RAM. I want 8 of them. There we go. But I want them spaced out a little bit more. So you can see here, factor X, factor Y. If we want the X factor, it's like we're on TV, you can change this so they're spaced out a little bit more. Something like that looks pretty good. We don't want Y because that spaces them out in the Y, and we don't want Z. So I'm clicking and dragging my mouse over here. I'm just going to set them back to 0. You can click and type in a value. I think about 1.3 works for me. However, they're too big for my printed circuit board, so I've got to click to select this again. SX, GX. There we go. Not bad. Right, now for some colour. This is almost black. So if I select those, doesn't matter which one I select because they're all the same thing with that array modifier. Go to the material tab. Add a new material. Change the colour of the material to be a bit darker. Oh, it's looking pretty good. All I want now are the gold connectors. So these bits and a little divot. You can see the bit on the right is a bit wider than the bit on the left so that you put it in the right way round. If we were being careful, you could put some other little divot things on the side so that it clips into place, but I'm not going to do that today. Let's have a look. Right, so we select the printed circuit board, the green bit, press Tab to go into edit mode. Remember, that's the button to the left of Q with the 2 arrows pointing to each other. I want to select this face here. Oh, in fact, no, I'm going to put the lines in to make that divot. This bit, the innie bit. So, Control R for a loop cut. And if we're in edit mode, you can hover your mouse over any of these, ready to make a cut. And I want to hover over here, a bit to the left, and click. Control R for another loop cut. Hover your mouse, click, and there we go. So now I want to pull out this bit and this bit and make them gold. So if I'm selecting at the moment, it's going to get vertices selected. I want faces selected, so that's this button up here, or pressing 3 on the keyboard. So I can get both of these. To get both of them selected, it's Shift and click. And then we did this in the previous challenge. I'm going to press E to extrude and pull that out. Lovely. Right, with these two selected, that one, Shift click that one, I want to select more, as in linked vertices. So Control and plus on the numpad. Or you can search for it if you like. Shift, click on that one. Press F3 to search and search for more. There we go. It's just selected linked vertices. I want to make these gold. If I change the green to gold, everything's going to change. Don't want to do that. I want a brand new material. So I need a new material slot. That's the plus. A new material in that slot. So now we've got a new material. We can change the color of the new material with the base color. Go to gold. But it's still green, and it will stay green until we press the assign button. So whatever you have selected, you can now assign that to whatever color. So that one I want to be PCB. These ones I want to be gold. It's currently called material. It is important that you give them sensible names, or at least it becomes important when you export it to something like the Unreal Engine or Unity Engine. So I'm going to call that gold. So that's not terrible. You might want to make it better by putting an extra green bit on here with a little divot over here. But that's essentially what our RAM chip is going to look like. Your challenge is to try and make it as accurate as possible to one of these. You might want some of the extra components on here. You might want to put some RGB lighting on. But see what you create.